Hello and welcome to Cherries Red Army. We hope you're having a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. It's the international break, but the conversation around the Cherries, it never stops. And we always take this opportunity to do a fan debate show. We've got 6 fans, 6 topics. The interactive chat is open. Please do get involved and let's just have some really good conversations. Cherries Red Army, we keep kicking, keep progressing. We are getting ever closer to 2,000 subscribers. So if you're new around here, please do subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button. Give some love for the fans that are contributing this evening. So smash that like button. Help the video grow between the international break. And if you're watching this back on replay, thank you very much. Do use the comments. Look, let us know who's with us. Do let us know in the interactive chat. We've already got Chris with us, Stephen Dyer from up north, Mark Singleton, how are you? Matthew Gale, thank you for joining us on another stream. Your opportunity to have your discussion in the chat because there's going to be topics on the table. The fans are going to have their say and you might have a different opinion and that's absolutely fine. We also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who continues to support the channel. More monthly members, you can become a monthly member or support the channel at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. Details in the description below. Thank you so much. Helps us do this, helps us grow. And if anything, just hit the like button. That's absolutely fine. So we're going to get our 6 guests on. I'm also going to ask them what their favourite moment of the season is so far. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be a goal. Just a moment that's put a smile on their face. And then we'll get stuck in to the topics. Smash that like button. Here we go then, and a debut. That's nice, a debut. It's Andrew. How are you? Thanks for joining us on this latest fan debate show.
Great to be here, Kirk. Yeah, I've been a follower, a viewer, and quite present on Twitter with my strange moniker of Arnold Savoy, but I'm called Andrew, not Arnold. But yeah, wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Andrew. What's your favourite moment of the season so far? 12 games gone?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier. Funnily enough, my favourite moment might actually now be Kieran Trippier having a chat with some Newcastle fans over in the East Stand. Isn't it interesting how many clubs fans end up having some kind of fracas with their players when they get beaten by us at Dean Court? I mean, I remember it with Everton last season twice, which was a joy. And to sort of see it repeated with Newcastle fans playing havoc with their players for losing to Tin Pot Bournemouth. I mean, we just seem to have that impact. I don't see it happening in other Premier League stadiums, you know. Maybe it's because of, you know, the fact that it's such a small stadium. Who knows? But I very much enjoyed those live pictures of Trippier having a chat with his critic.
Yeah, and Matt Davies, contributor, said this on our previous Cherries in Focus show as well. He said, it will never amaze me how we wind up so many people, little old Bournemouth, getting a result at home. We've also got Connor from the States. Thank you very much. Mark Cole joining us. Paul from Australia and Ben Youssef. And talking of the States, we've got David Cordell. How are you?
I'm all right, getting over a cold, but it's... I don't like the international break particularly because it's boring. So I can't wait to get back to the season in a couple of weeks. And for my favourite moment, I'm going to say beating Newcastle. You know, that I think is going to be the game that turns our season around. And we saw Iraola'S really for the first time working the way it needs to work. So hopefully we can get behind him. We can get over this stupid crap about whether we should have got rid of Gary O'Neill or not got rid of Gary O'Neill and go on and make sure we're in the mid-table by the end of the year.
Yeah, it felt like a throwback night at Dean Court. Much needed. And first win against Newcastle in the Premier League at home. Great, great. And we've got, he's back again. He's very, very good. And it's Josh. How are you doing, Josh?
Yeah, well, good, thank you. And I'm happy to be on again and get stuck in with this tonight. My favourite moment for the season, I would go Newcastle, but I thought someone would say that. But I'll go. It didn't last long, but it was actually Semenyo's goal at Anfield just because of what happened the year before. I think being that in the away end that night was was special until they obviously scored and won. But it was a nice moment anyway.
That takes us on nicely to our first topic then, Josh. Like you planned it because you brought to the table a conversation about Semenyo. And he has had an impressive start to the season. He did get that quick fire goal at Anfield. I think he played in the Brentford 2-2. He has dipped in and out of the team. But as we went into that Burnley game a few weeks ago, I felt like we needed someone like Semenyo, a bit bullish. He could just drive at this side that was struggling to keep clean sheets and win games. And we just had to get that first win in the Premier League under Antoine Iraola. He played a part in that. He's played a part ever since. You want to talk about Semenyo?
Yeah, I think Antoine was someone this summer who maybe there was a few questions about the future of, because he come in last year, obviously, and didn't really get too much game time. He struggled a little bit, and then he scored against Leeds, obviously. And I think that now looking at it, that's almost, it looks like it's helped him really in confidence. But I think this season, he just, whenever he's played, he's been fantastic and really should have been undroppable in my opinion. But he has obviously come out the side. But whenever he's playing, he's so positive. He's physical and he always goes for goal. And I think that's what we need with our wingers, just directness and creative.
It's interesting, Andrew, because when we signed him, I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure. And I want to give every kid a chance. And I don't think he's the most technically gifted player, but he's very direct. He's threatening. And he likes to get a shot away. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're a bit off. But he wants it. He wants to prove his worth. He wants to have a go in the Premier League, and he looks dangerous.
I agree, and I think it's fascinating, isn't it? Given the plethora of players we've got in all of these forward positions, and how I think what's great is he's absolutely taken his chance. I agree with Josh. I mean, that goal at Anfield, I was there that day, and it was, couldn't really see the detail of the goal, but it was wonderful to see him score it. But these last few matches, when he's been given the starts by Andoni, I think he's looked great. He's looked strong. He's looked fast, which is a really key component. And as you said, Kirk, the fact he's not afraid to have a shot is always going to go down well. So his confidence must be sky high now, because he will have had the same doubts, I guess, everybody else had, thinking going into this season, do I actually have, a chance of starting many games? And I think he's done great. And it augurs really well for us at the moment.
Now, Paul in the chat, David, says Semenyo has to play every game. So direct, gets shots on target, pushes forward like Rothwell. And a problem he creates is you've got very good wingers on the bench, especially David Brooks. I mean, Dango's had some good moments. He's had some struggling moments, very raw. But he's keeping some very good players on the bench at the moment.
He is. But one of the things I think that's really critical is the way Andoni plays. You have to have a lot of players who can come on and press. And so you want to have that number of players on the bench because you want people basically to burn themselves out and then replace them with new energy for in the second half. And what I love about the bench is we have so many talented players who could come on and do what Andoni needs them to do. So I think it's really important that he plays. I don't know if he needs to start every game, but I think we're moving away from the thing where you just have 11 players. You need to have a squad of players who you can rotate into the team during the game in order to keep this kind of pressure up. And the best thing about Newcastle was the press. I mean, it was that's what caused the goals. It was the way it was supposed to work, and I'm excited for the rest of the season. I think if we can play like we did against Newcastle, I'm going to tell you right now, if we can play like we did against Newcastle, we're going to get 15 points in the next 5 games. You don't even have to ask me.
I was going to ask you later, but you got it out now anyway. See what Matthew said. He should start every game. He's a defender's nightmare. And Paul from Australia, he takes the pressure off of Dom. I suppose that's the only question mark for me, Andrew, is I thought that Semenyo could be a player that could play directly up top as a number 9 or play wide. But actually what I'm thinking is I think he is just mainly a wide player that comes off the chalk and really direct and as an angle coming towards a goal, because he played up top against Stoke and he doesn't do what Dom can do in regards to hold up the ball and take pressure off the midfielders. maybe he'll grow into that, Andrew, but I very much see him as a wide player. I don't see him as a striker. And the problem we have is if Dom gets an injury, who replaces Dom?
Yeah, let's not even go there, shall we? Because I mean, Solanke. I know we're talking about Semenyo, but Solanke every season. I mean, the guy is just he's maturing. He's like a fine wine, isn't he? He's just getting better and better. And I think the fact that he's already scored the amount of goals he got last season in, now at this point of the season speaks volumes. But I do say, and even though we don't want to talk about it, if something were to happen to Dom, at least I think with Andoni, we've got a coach who, I think what we're seeing and why someone like Semenyo, for example, is doing so well is because off the pitch, there's clearly a lot more work going on the training ground, and these players are growing and developing and just being more flexible. If you think about the amount of forward players, I think of them as forward players now. Obviously, Dom's in that specific role, but around him, you've got such a mix of players that you can bring in, as David says, either coming, in off the bench on the 60-minute mark or starting the game. So I just think we look strong attacking wise. I think what we'll start to see, hopefully, if we could maintain, Andoni ball or whatever we're going to call it, is goals coming from other, players as well, and not just Dom. And Semenyo's obviously been scoring some great goals as well. So it's all really exciting.
It is. It's very much exciting. Josh, is there a part of Semenyo's game that you would like him to improve, develop? Is there something you see in him that if he really improved in that area, he could become even better?
I think it's not too much of he needs to strengthen it, but it's just when he's dribbling, get in the box a bit more, because I really do think, I'll say a word that we don't really talk about, but it is a penalty. And I do think Antoine, if he does dribble into the box, could win some penalties. And he sort of, at times, he reminds me a bit of a Iraola'S, the way he moves his body when he's dribbling, because defenders don't know where to stand with him. And I think if he just moves into the box a bit more, he will get us more penalties or chances in general.
Josh, can you explain what a penalty is? Because I haven't seen one in those years.
I mean, it's got to happen this year, surely. Surely we've got to get a penalty at some point.
There was one on Saturday. I thought.
The handball.
The handball. It was. How can they say that's not a handball? Yeah. Whatever.
It's so frustrating. So frustrated. I mean, look, I know we're talking about Semenyo here as well, David, but talking about the wingers, and Sinistera came on to play behind Dom, and he played that counter-attacking midfielder role. Philip Billings' place might not be guaranteed now. I mean, it's all seeming to come together in one game.
I thought Sinistera was amazing. I mean, I thought, if it wasn't for Nick Pope, we would have won that game 5 or 6-0. We were having shots all over the place. We need to convert them. What I liked about Dom on Saturday, especially the second goal, that's an old-fashioned goal, right? The ball came in, it went off the post, and he's there to like smash it in, right? Ted McDougall style. And that's sometimes what we miss from Dom. Is like he's so busy holding the ball up that sometimes he's not in the box for those chances to kind of get that goal. But he was on Saturday. I think you're right. I think he's like a fine wine that keeps on maturing, and we can talk about it later, but the one player I would like us to sign, I don't know if he will. I think we need to replace a cover for Dom, but I would love to see us persuade Lloyd Kelly to stay. That would be the one. I don't think it's going to happen, but I pray it does.
That might come up later on.
Yeah, let's not talk about it now.
Let's not talk about that, man. Let's talk about happy stuff, not.
Yeah. Andrew, very quickly on that Newcastle game, because it's still very fresh in the memory. When Andoni come in, I felt like we're going to get really close, or back to closeness, in regards to being on the edge of our seat. We know we're going to lose some football matches with this style, but we're going to be safe. We're going to be okay, but it's going to be fun. And I did the match day vlog. I'm not match day vlogging every game this season. We're going to do away games and some home games. Felt like I had to do Newcastle. And I was on the edge of my seat. I was struggling to like stay with it and keep the camera on some areas of the game. And I just loved it. It felt like the old days.
It did indeed. Shamefully, I couldn't be at Dean Court for the game because I was moving house, so I had to watch it through nefarious means. But I was absolutely there in spirit, and it was a joy to watch. It's the most complete we've played, isn't it? You know, it's like we've seen it in pockets. I mean, you know, I was genuinely excited the first 25 minutes of the Brighton away game. I thought, by God, this is good. Look at how we've taken the game to Brighton. Look at how he is trying to out-tactic De Zerbi here. And then obviously it fell apart. So I think what we saw at the weekend and what was exciting about seeing it was the kind of performance that we all got. The reason we all got so excited when he was announced as our manager in the summer. This is what we were all expecting. And yeah, Kirk, you're right. After it feels like, let's be honest, when was the last sort of phase of watching Bournemouth where as fans we were excited to go to games? It's been a long time. Yeah. It's not been there, has it? And under the last sort of, how many managers has it been since Eddie Howe? I mean, I was talking to a mate of mine. I mean, talking about Dom Solanke, I said to a mate of mine, how many managers has Dom Solanke played under at Bournemouth? He's been here, what, 5 years? Yeah. And my mate was like, 3? I was like, nah, it's 5, isn't it? It's Eddie Howe, it's Tyndall, it's Southgate, it's Woodgate.
Yeah.
It's Scott Parker, it's Gary O'Neill, it's now Andoni Iraola. 6. That's crazy.
But it
Can I
does
just
take
say, I prefer it to be Woodgate than Southgate. But over to you, David.
Yeah, let's not get those two confused.
I did say, I mean, his style of play is much more exciting than, say, last season. Even when we won last season, it was like, oh, okay. Even when we got promotion, it was like, okay, we got promotion, but it wasn't the Eddie style, right? It wasn't taking the game to them. And I feel that now we have someone who can take the game to them. I think you're right. We're going to lose some games, but I think we'll win a lot more than we lose. And it's going to take the team a while to buy into it. And I think Saturday was the first time that we saw the team as a whole buy into it. So for me, that's what's exciting. I think it's going to be a great season. I don't think there's no chance we're going to go down. First of all, I think Everton are going to get a 12-point deduction, which is going to be absolutely delightful. And then I think there's at least 3 or 4 teams that are worse than us, even on our worst day. So not wide.
Just to sort of interrupt on a tactical standpoint, I think when you look at Saturday compared to Everton away, which was obviously a game where it was almost like the attack was almost isolated and the defence looked a bit vulnerable. But I think even Andoni as a manager is evolving, as I think in game at the weekend, obviously Lloyd Kelly starts as a left back, but at times he almost, when we're in defence, Tavernier will tuck into left wing back, Kelly into a more free, and then when we're in attack, Semenyo or Sinister will move up with Dom. And I just think as a team, it's much more fluid and we're sort of adapting and learning. It's looking really positive, but sort of the roles are really sort of, I don't think they're restricted to a role under Iraola, and I think that really sort of benefits us really well.
Yeah, there was definitely a variation, definitely interchanging of positions. And that takes us on lovely to our second topic, talking about Andoni Iraola. And it was great against Newcastle. It's great we're on 9 points. And Andrew, you brought to the table, of all that amazing stuff on Saturday and the positivity we feel right now, we still got that question mark hanging over us. Why has Andoni Iraola not got his right-hand man? So currently, by the side of Andoni, he's got Tommy Elphick, Sean Cooper. He's got his fitness coach, which I think is Pablo Della Torre, I think. But we tried to obviously bring along Inigo Perez. He's, in what I have heard and seen, is that he failed his work permit, didn't meet the requirements, and he's back in Spain. That's all I know and what I've heard. Andrew, what's your thoughts on it? Because this is one of the reasons, even through the tough start that we had, why I just couldn't really lay into Andoni. That he'll get a few decisions wrong, but he's trying to drive home a philosophy. He's trying to drive a culture. Andoni's not on the training ground every minute of the day. And when he's not there, who's driving home that message? Who's delivering those transitions and that style and making the players work on the training ground so it all feels natural? Who's doing that? Because remember, he's trying to teach Tommy Elphick and Sean Cooper what he wants to deliver on the pitch. This is not easy, right? This can take time. And if you haven't got your own people, it's even harder.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think it's become a bit of a bugbear for me, because I think this is actually a sort of a story which, if this was taking place at any other club in the Premier League, it would be a national football story. You know, you'd have the Henry Winters of this world writing opinion pieces about it. Can you imagine if Pep Guardiola had turned up at Manchester City and he couldn't bring in his right-hand man, or Klopp, or any of them? But it's Bournemouth, right? Andoni Iraola has come in, his first job in the Premier League, his first job in the English, you know, in England, and he can't bring his own team with him. If you think about when Eddie Howe went into Newcastle United, they were buying into Eddie Howe and his team. That's how modern football management at elite level works. You're a team. It's not just the head coach. It's the coach and his entire, you know, squad effectively. So Howe takes in Jason Tindall, Stephen Purchase, Simon Weatherston, Dan Hodges, you know, and then he's brought in Sean Jalal. But fundamentally, the idea is that day, Newcastle United were under the management of Eddie Howe and his team. And they, you know, I was watching the warm-up on the pitch at Dean Court, and you've got Tindall, you've got Purchase, you've got Weatherston. They're Eddie Howe's lieutenants. They're loyal to Howe. They know what Howe wants. Howe is the general, and they're his lieutenants. And here's Andoni Iraola rocking up at Dean Court in the summer with no one. And I'm sure Pablo Torre, forgive my pronunciation, I think he must be a fantastic guy, but he's a fitness coach. He's not the tactician. And, you know, you think back to hearing Eddie Howe describe his relationship with Tindall and how they work together. You know, you've got Andoni Iraola rocking up and being introduced to Tommy Elphick and Cooper. Now, they might be fine coaches, but they're not his guys. So he has got to, as you say, Kirk, he's got to sit them down. It's almost like in the mornings he's taking the squads for training, and in the afternoons he's saying, right, boys, this is what I'm all about. We have no idea whether they buy into it themselves. But you know what I mean? It's just crazy. And I absolutely feel like Andoni Iraola has been treated poorly by the football club here. Because quite frankly, if you are hiring Andoni Iraola, you are hiring him and his staff, because he clearly said when he came to Dean Court in that first press conference, I'm bringing, you know, Inigo Perez with me, my coach and my fitness coach, right? And then, you know, it's been revealed, the last media coverage of this situation was, the last I can see was on the 5th of September, so over 2 months ago. Jack Tanner at The Echo wrote a piece about it, and he went into the detail, and he explained that because Perez was only Iraola's right-hand man for just under one season, he hadn't been in the job long enough to qualify for this, what they call governing body endorsement from the FA, which is what an elite sports person requires to get the work permit from the Home Office. And so I just feel like, who was doing the due diligence at AFC Bournemouth when they're in negotiations with Andoni Iraola? They, you know, they offer him the job and they say, yeah, don't worry, we'll get your assistant in. Well, who, you know, went on the internet? Who rang the FA? Who was doing the basic due diligence of, can we actually hire this team? And I think, you know, that's kind of gross negligence, isn't it? If you actually discover that the guy that your head coach wants to bring is not going to be able to get a work permit, then that's bad. And you know, and part of me, I have no idea what's really going on behind the scenes. Andoni seems such a professional that you'd never sense it. He's never going to moan about it, is he, publicly? But he must feel shafted, because if he was told this would happen, and he's now sat in sandbags in his house tonight, where's my coach? I really feel strongly about this, and I feel strongly that no one, you know, if he, you know, Josh, I mean, I've not heard any more on this. The last article I can find was this Jack Tanner piece. But if he has been rejected, it's not been made public. Nobody's picked up on it. It's not been mentioned. So what's going to happen? Because surely, okay, he can't bring in his trusted lieutenant. Well, maybe there's somebody else in Spain that he has worked with previously that might be more on his wavelength. I don't know. But I just think it's a scandal in some respects.
Go on, David.
I'm going to be controversial. If you
Go
hadn't
for
voted for Brexit, he'd be able to come.
Well, exactly. We know that. But
I'm fine. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is one of the downsides of Brexit, right? I mean, you are able, in the old days, to be able to bring people in.
yeah, I don't. But this is not to do with Brexit. This is to do with if Paul Barber at Brighton, the CEO, was bringing in, had to replace, Graham Potter, and he's got De Zerbi, and De Zerbi says, "These are my team. This is who I'm bringing in." Paul Barber's going to go, "Great. Let me just make sure I can do that."
It should have been done at the beginning, like before they brought him in. That's, I think, what you're saying.
Yeah, I think, Josh, this is where I'm at with it, and I align very much a lot with what Andrew said, and I've made a lot of these opinions without directly calling anyone out, just making my opinions on social media. So, look, you look at Aston Villa with Unai Emery. His right-hand man is Spanish. He's actually got about 12 of his own people. You go to Brighton, De Zerbi's got 3 Italians in his main coaching setup. I think you go to Brentford, Thomas Frank has got his own people. Now, I'm not going to stick up for anyone here, Josh. The only thing I can come up with is we've never done this before. We've never hired outside the UK, and we've gone for it. We've bitten the bullet, but has someone done their full due diligence, and have we missed a trick and actually not realised that we can get Inigo Perez over here?
No, I do agree. I do think we should have dealt with it better. I do, because Andoni probably does feel let down, but also I think you've got Coops, obviously, and you've got Tommy Elphick as the coaches. Are they really any managers staff, or are they Bournemouth staff? Do they really have a philosophy of football? So while Andoni's teaching the players his style, he's also teaching his coaching staff, and he's without his right-hand man. So that can't be easy either. I mean, it's a young squad as well, so it's going to take them time. I think it's all just sort of melted into one for Andoni. It's tough, but hopefully he'll get through it.
So I have a question for Andrew. So is it that he's gone back and it's done, or they're trying to work on it still? I mean,
I think that's what Andrew wants. He wants to know what is the update. So has he gone back to Spain, but we're still trying to find a workaround? Has Inigo Perez got to do something to get that over the line, or have we given up? Or there must be someone else that Andoni knows that he can trust, just to drive home the vision and philosophy when he's not on the training ground.
And I agree. And yeah, David, that's my point, actually. So it's a twofold point. One thing is, if it turns out, I mean, first of all, somebody at the club is a bit negligent, aren't they, in terms of like not knowing the permits required and checking. Can we just double check, Perez, has he got a UEFA A license? How long has he been an assistant manager? Basic due diligence when you're hiring. I mean, they're spending a lot of money on these people as well. Let's not forget. Bill Foley's money has been spent. I'm sure Andoni hasn't come over here, on minimum wage. So, they're committed. There's quite a financial outlay that they're committing. Any other multi-million-pound industry does like basic due diligence, like can these people actually be legally employed in this country for these jobs? And so fundamentally, you look at Jack Tanner's piece, dig it out, Google it, 5th of September in the Echo, last sort of news piece I could find on this. And he explained the criteria. So effectively, what the club would have done is they wanted to get called a GBE, a governing body endorsement from the Football Association, to then apply for the work permit to the Home Office in the UK. And effectively what would happen is an exceptions panel made up of 3 independent people would sit and judge whether Perez, is deemed appropriate to be given this governing body endorsement. Now, we don't know if that's happened. We've got no time frame. There's been no reporting on this. There's been no kind of updates, obviously not directly from the club, but Chris Stemple's never sort of tweets about it. The Echo haven't talked about it for a while. We don't have Dan Davis, and we don't have Ahmed and Jacob really on our patch anymore. This is kind of like a bit of a dig at the fact that the bigger media outlets don't give us any coverage, because this is a story. If it was happening at Aston Villa, at Newcastle, at Brentford, it would be talked about, and it'd be like, what's going on? Why can't this guy be given a work permit? You know what I mean? Or it's that's what annoys me as much as it annoys me that I feel like Josh says, Andoni has been let down by AFC Bournemouth on this.
But Josh, if I spin this a little bit, because I think we're all in similar boat, and I think that a lot of fans are feeling this way. We have just got a great result against Newcastle. We did get a good away point at Brentford. And if we are getting some of these points and performances in like spits and spurts up to Newcastle, if we're doing that and Andoni's literally carrying the whole staff and the team, I do think if we just give him a little bit more and grow with that over time, he's only got a 2-year contract at the moment, we could be very good.
Well, I mean, he's sort of built from route one, well, from right at the bottom, hasn't he? Where, because we had Gary O'Neill before, let's not forget how he played for us. I mean, it's very different styles of football. I mean, he might play different at Wolves, but when he was Bournemouth manager, it was very pragmatic, not really what Andoni Iraola wants to do. So, I mean, it's progressively going to get better anyway, just for the age of the squad as well, for the players we brought in. So, if he did get an assistant as well or more coaches, it's only going to speed it up, I think. And as he said, we will get better and better.
That's the point that I think Josh is making, which is really good, which is, yes, we're getting good, but how much better would we be if he was there, right? That's the point, that Andoni needs to have his staff, his man, if you like, to help him get that mission across.
But isn't it amazing to bring it back full circle? This is why he deserves even more credit than anybody else? Because you know the Linekers and you know righties and all that mob, you know they don't know any of this stuff. But the very fact that Andoni has come in on his own, you know, he's coaching and managing for the first time in a different language. And he's inherited, you know, 2 coaches who, and like, you know, with the greatest respect to both Elphick and Cooper, you know, they're Bournemouth coaches, aren't they? It's not like it's not Graham Jones who had a track record as an elite coach. They were the Bournemouth coaches that have been brought through the system. So, you know, Andoni has not only had to come in and work with a bunch of players who, as we sort of talked about earlier, you know, Dom Solanke's this is his 6th manager in his time at Dean Court. All of those different managers, all those different ideas. Dom, play like this. Dom, don't do it like this. Dom, do it like this. So Iraola is inheriting players that have had all these different voices. And so he's working with those players, but he's also got to work with those coaches because he and you know, you just don't know, do you, how receptive the Cooper and Elphick have been, but also how capable they are of being able to know what Andoni actually wants. Because as you said, Kirk, he can't be everywhere all at once. One imagines, you know, the players go off in the canteen, and at Newcastle, that's when Tyndall would go and sit down with whoever and say, right, you know, let's just talk about this, shall we?
He so would. Even when you see some clips of when Newcastle players are talking to like media leading up to games and Sky Sports, they're talking about Jason Tyndall and the fun he brings to the other half of the team and etc. And yeah, I get all of that. I mean, look, it's a deeper conversation. We're going to wrap up this topic in a minute, David, but there is a deeper conversation coming down the road. We're immediately talking about Andoni and his assistant, but actually it's a lot deeper than that. Bill Foley's spoken about replicating models that work, and he's talking about Brighton. Let's not lie, he's talking about Brighton. If you want to go somewhere, if you're in the chat and you're watching this stream and you want to go and look at models, go and look at Brighton's model. It's very different. They have got a very good structure from the bottom to the trainer, and looking at the stats, to the nutritionist, to the people that recruit. It's one hell of a model. We're not close to that. So we're not. I know we're talking about European tours and all that, David, but we're not close to that yet. We've got to get the assistant in or get some help for Andoni, and then we've really got to think about this model and structure to really grow.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but the things that are in place now, they're beginning to come in place. Building the training ground is absolutely critical for a whole bunch of reasons. Not least that if we ever get relegated, that becomes the source of the future players, right? Building up the academy. I mean, I've been watching some of Alan Connell's team. They've been playing really well this year. That's going to get better. The next thing, and we'll talk about it in a few moments, the stadium, right? Once we get the new training ground built, the stadium has to be next, and that's the part that I'm looking forward to, because I think there's so much that we could do with a new stadium.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, very, very lastly, because you brought this to the table, do you have any thoughts on the actual structure of the club? I feel like there's a few people that just want to own a lot, and actually, if you share it out, we could find better players. I think we've got really good players, but you can find players for 5 million and sell them for 110, and we can actually grow if we actually have designated roles deeper and further outside of the pitch.
Yeah, it's. I mean, fundamentally, you're talking about the football operations infrastructure, and you know, we all heard the sort of the rumours that have just sort of vanished. Really, no one's talking about it now. That apparently Richard Hughes was about to leave. He's effectively de facto, you know, the head of football operations. He's the technical director. He is the Paul Barber at Bournemouth. You know, he's the Dan Ashworth guy. You know, arguably, you know, if you just look on, you know, Richard Hughes doesn't talk to the media. Neil Blake's never given an interview. You know, the key people off the pitch that would be driving the development, the growth of AFC Bournemouth, which I think what we're talking about, again, are figures that have been at the club since, you know, the early days of Max Demin, the latter days of Eddie Mitchell. You know, I think if Bill Foley, you know, it would not surprise me one iota that there'll be changes in those areas, you know, imminently, because fundamentally that's how, if you want to replicate Brighton, you have to bring in people of a certain caliber at elite football level who can grow the football operations and structure a club in a more progressive way. And it probably involves more people and more bodies. So, you know, one would hope that is something that is happening behind the scenes, and that's something that Bill Foley and his people who are advising him are certainly looking into.
I just want to give a shout out for Richard Hughes there. I think he's done an amazing job over the years. You know, yes, we've had some duds, but we've also had some really good players that he's brought in. So, you know, a lot of people kind of blame him when things don't go right, but they also don't give him credit when things go wrong. Sorry, blame him when things go wrong and don't give him credit when things go right. I think he's probably leaving. That's what I'm hearing. Maybe this is an opportunity to bring in, you know, someone different. Maybe Dan Ashworth. You know, I think the other person that left recently was the Norwich director of football, right?
Weber.
So he's another name that I've heard. But at the end of the day, you know, you do need to have that set up. It has to be correct to get us to the next level. In other words, bringing in the players for 5 to 10 million and being able to sell them for 80 million, that's what you want to be able to do.
Fantastic. Paul in the chat does say, remember Gary never had an assistant manager, but what you've got to remember, Paul, is he come under Woodgate, then he stayed, then he was under Parker, then he would have known Tommy Elphick and Sean Cooper for a good couple of years. So there was that connection there. So slightly different, but fair enough. He was also very inexperienced. Josh, want to come to the final?
He did bring in that guy from Liverpool's academy, didn't he?
Jenkins. Yeah. And I think he's brought in his own assistant at Wolves as well, Sean Derry, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
So even Gary O'Neill's getting his own assistant. But Josh, we've had some really good conversations on that. Takes us on to our final topic of the first half of the show from David. It's quite open, the question, Josh. We just talked about what the club looks like at the moment, what it could be. And David's asking, the future is. What is the future, Josh?
I think the future is bright. As they said there, I mean, a new training ground, a new stadium maybe, and the academy, was it 10 games unbeaten? Young team who can get better, young manager who can get better. And we're in the Premier League, and an owner who is ambitious, who will make the changes to win or do whatever he wants. I just think we're onto something good. It will take time though. Everything will. We're not going to be Brighton overnight. We're not going to scout 1 million great players for 5 million and then they'll end up like Caicedo. That's not how it goes. But we have got some good young talent and we just got to stay patient and I'm sure we will succeed.
Yeah, and you can look at that question, Andrew. I'll come to you in a minute, David, because it was your topic. I mean, you can look at it how you want. I think on the pitch, I think it's bright. I think we're in no danger. I hope that doesn't come across wrong, but I think we will be absolutely fine. I think the promoted sides are going to really struggle this season. I think we will grow. I think we've got an opportunity to pick up our first Premier League away win next week at Sheffield United. On the pitch, it looks bright. I think it's a bit Marmite off the pitch, and we've all wanted a training ground that's coming. We've all wanted a stadium, but we know with that there is the unknown: ticket prices, merchandise, the superstore. But can you have it all? Can you have it all?
Probably not. And I think the stuff that you've just hinted at there is worthy of a sort of separate conversation. But I mean, it's difficult. I mean, you look at. I mean, I sounds crazy given how I'm not 16 years old or anything, but I got a bit goosebumps when I saw that drone footage of the new stadium build. Because I was like, is this really, really happening? And it is. And the stadium will follow. And fundamentally, our club is absolutely changing, and yeah, it's never going to be what it used to be, and I think that there's still elements of that, if you still got people behind the scenes like Steve Fletcher involved, you just hope that these new owners sort of appreciate the history of the club and the sort of the uniqueness of who we are, and I think without getting too deep on it, I think the future is bright, and I'm encouraged in every sort of area of what we've discussed, certainly on the pitch and off the pitch. And it's just, it's just nice, isn't it, to be back watching football that by and large looks exciting, and the idea that this is actually a project. And whilst Andoni only agreed to a 2-year contract, apparently I think he only wanted a 1-year deal. We wanted to offer him 3, and we kind of reached in the middle. But you would think he's got to, fundamentally, Iraola has to make a success of this for him to move on to the next sort of, level for him. And so what does success look like? I think it looks like maybe it's the end of next season as sort of finishing 8th, somewhere around that mark, And if that is Andoni sort of then thinking that he can go and manage Aston Villa or Newcastle or wherever like that, great. But I'm encouraged. I mean, look, I was encouraged the minute Iraola was hired, and I'm still encouraged now.
And David, it was your topic, and I think when I look at Bill Foley, everything he said, he's pretty much delivered. I believe a lot of what he said. I mean, you're currently in America. He's been very successful with his ice hockey team. And I know that there'll be some moments that's going to upset us, certain things that might disappoint us. But as I said, I don't think you can have everything. I love Dean Court. I think it's unique. I think it's different. Some fans will mock it. But actually, some fans come down and say, I absolutely love coming to Bournemouth. We know, hopefully in a few years' time, we'll have a brand new stadium. Hopefully it'll feel unique in its own way again. But the future to you, what is it?
Well, I think, first of all, you do have to recognise the past, right? So I think it's important to have people like Fletcher around who were there in the dark days. But you also have to grow, and you have to have a plan. And that's what Foley brings to the table. He is very successful. He is very driven. He has very high standards. And I think the thing for me is that the future is, in fact, going to be very bright. We've never had an owner with the resources that Bill Foley has. I remember Harold Walker. I remember the Haywards. I remember Paul Baker, God help us. Eddie Mitchell. And at least Eddie's heart was in the right place. You've got to give Eddie that, right? He cared about the club. But we've never had a man, even Max, who is not in the same financial capabilities of Bill Foley. So that's the exciting part. The downside is there are going to be changes, right? People are upset about the hospitality. Well, you know what? You have to increase the hospitality because that increases the income, which allows you to have better financial fair play, right? It's all connected. You've got You've got to actually increase that hospitality money because that's where the money is. Now, that doesn't mean that ordinary fans shouldn't be able to go. You've got to find that balance that long-term fans can still go. I would like to see in the new stadium, and I've put my plea into them for this already, I want to see safe standing, right? I want to see safe standing at each end because that builds the atmosphere. If we build the stadium right, we could end up with a gem of our hands. And it's not going to be a 50,000 stadium. I can guarantee that. It's going to be smaller than some people will want. But the most important thing we need to do is build an expandable stadium, a stadium that can grow just like we can grow. And if we do that, the future is limitless. That's what I'm going to say. It's limitless.
Some really, really good conversation. Thank you, Andrew, David, and Josh. I was going to ask you a question because we spoke about it off air before we came live about how many points you think we'll get in the next 5 games. But I'm going to change it. I know David's given his away anyway, but I'm going to change it. Thank you for coming on for this part 1. Do show love for Andrew, David, and Josh. Hit that like button. But Josh, to see you out, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your international break. Thanks for coming on. Your final thoughts. Sheffield United next. Try and get that first Premier League away win. Summarise or tell me how you're feeling about that game coming up.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. And yeah, next week I am nervous because I do think there will be a good atmosphere there, and they're going to be up for it because it's a huge game for them. I also think Everton, if they do get a points deduction, it will affect that game just because of how big or the gap between us and that bottom 3 could be. But I don't think it will be pretty. We could play them off the park if we play like next week. But I think 1-0 says to me, really, just get the job done, away win. But I'd like it to be pretty, but I don't think it will be.
Yeah. David, 0-0 in the Championship the last time out, I can recall. I think we lost to them in the Premier League, maybe the COVID season when they were managed by Chris Wilder. But a great opportunity to pull away from that relegation zone and create a little bit more pressure on Sheffield United.
I'm going to annoy Sheffield fans. It's the anniversary of the Margate win. I'm going to go 11-0.
Andrew, fantastic debut. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for the nice things you said before we came on air as well. Your thoughts? Hope you've enjoyed yourself on the Sheffield United game coming next.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very good at predicting games, and I try to avoid it. But I'm expecting it. I think it'll be tight, actually. But I think we'll get our first away win. I think, the thing that I was all quite excited about in the summer, this notion that Iraola was good at like beating the big boys in La Liga. And so Liverpool away this season, I was thinking this will be it. He's going to no one knows how he's going to play. Klopp doesn't know that. This is we're going to make a bit of a splash. Didn't happen. And obviously, certainly didn't happen against Arsenal and Man City. I got a feeling that, the way United are, going to Old Trafford. So it's the next away game that I'm curious about. I've got a feeling that could be our first Iraola gets one over one of the big boys. So, I think it'll be a tight game. I hope we beat United. It's important that we beat United. But I'll be curious to see, if Old Trafford can be the place where Iraola does his, hey, look who I am.
And that could lead to the manager being fired at United.
And we're pretty good at doing that to managers, aren't we? The only managers that we have sort of seen off over the years, whether it's, Jose Mourinho, Steve McLaren, Frank Lampard we brought last season.
Bournemouth, the giant slayer of managers.
Exactly.
And some very nice comments for you in the chat. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you, David. And thank you, Josh. Enjoy the rest of your international break. And I hope you feel better soon, David. And we will go into part 2. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. We've got 3 new guests and 3 new topics. Thank you for joining Cherries Red Army. Morgan Scott, good to see you again. How you doing?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Moment of the season. Do you have one yet?
I do. For me, for what he went through with his psychological health and his physical health, it would be David Brooks' first goal back in the Premier League at Brentford that almost won us the game. we needed a few more minutes to go our way. But no, for me, that was quite special because technically he was the player of pre-season for me. So no, it was excellent seeing him back amongst the goals in the Premiership.
Fantastic. David from Australia, we were so close to the 3 points. So close. How you doing, mate?
Good, thanks, Kirk. How are you?
Not too bad. Moment of the season. Do you have one yet?
Well, I did have one, but it's been taken. So I'll have to think of another one. I think it just has to be the game against Newcastle, just the amount of attacking that we did, the amount of shots that we had, the amount of clear-cut chances that we ideally would have put away and put into a 4-5-0 win, but didn't. But just the overall performance, that was just great.
And he's on the channel again. It's Mark Davies. We've had some issues with goalkeepers, but we didn't have any issues last weekend. Neto and a clean sheet. How you doing, mate?
Fantastic, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Kirk. And I absolutely loved my El Marino, my 50% off. That was banging. That was just what I needed. That. So, yeah, thanks very much, Neto. Much appreciated, fella. Yeah, now big performance from him in the end. Some real crucial saves, and yeah, I think that's that little bit of time, that little injury. It looks like it's done him a world of good, mate.
Yeah. Roy also says, pretty or not, this is a crunch game, big time, talking about Sheffield United. Let's go on to our next topic then. And Morgan, can you remind me, actually, talking of goalkeepers, because we were talking to Mark Davies, you do want to talk about a goalkeeper. So a few weeks ago, we were sort of causing ourselves a few issues, and Neto was in the mix of that. Then he picked up an ankle injury. Then Radu came in and settled us down a bit. We did go out the Carabao Cup. Then he unfortunately was hit for 6 at the Etihad. Mark Travers was called back in that sort of interim spell, and I thought he was going to start against Newcastle. Mark Travers has come back. He's sat on the bench. So what now, Morgan, for Mark Travers? Because he was doing all right at Stoke City. Stoke City fans were not happy to see him recalled, and he seems to be in a little bit of limbo land again.
Wow, 13 games at Stoke according to some stats, and now he's keeping our bench warm again, which is I kind of thought this was kind of Travers, without seeming to be disrespectful. I think Travers has always done a decent job when he's come into the team. He had a great game against Tottenham a few years ago when he got his debut in the Premiership and made some cracking saves from some outstanding players. And then obviously he's been number 2, number 3, and he's built his way into the team. And, until the Liverpool 9-0, which you couldn't say was all his fault, maybe he could have done better with a couple of them, but I don't think it was particularly his fault. It's now seeming very strange. I know we only had Cameron Payne, a backup goalkeeper, but have we thought it through much? It's a question to be asked. Do we need to? Did we think Neto would be out a little bit longer? Did we think that Radu wasn't up to it? It's a very interesting decision for them to call him back now. For him, if he came straight back, I know he was cup tied for the Liverpool match, but if he came straight back in against Newcastle, well, no questions are. Neto was fantastic. So, and I know Radu had illness apparently, so that's why Travers was on the bench and not Radu. Radu's got on international duty, which is great for his experience. And now we got Mark Travers that is a very good goalkeeper. And is he going to get back in the team after what Neto did against Newcastle? Probably not for some time. So it's a very interesting situation for Mark Travers.
Yeah, David, I think it was just about right that Mark Travers went out on loan, regain a little bit of confidence, and he had a very good start at Stoke City. And I was speaking to Stoke City podcasts, and they were saying finally got a decent, goalkeeper after a few years. It's a really weird one now because you've got Neto, who is the club captain, and he did everything he needed to do against Newcastle, got a clean sheet that'll build his confidence, but he's over 30 years old. Mark Travers, you're hoping is the future. You're hoping that Mark Travers saves you 20 or 30 million pounds that you don't have to go out and get a goalkeeper. Where is Mark Travers' head right now? Because you don't want to lose him in regards to if there is a goalkeeper in there that is more than capable of playing mid-table in the Premier League. But it's a fine balance. It's a difficult ask now for Andoni to keep all these happy if they're all staying.
Yeah, I think it must be very difficult for him. I think, especially being one of our main players in the championship promotion season, and then coming in and then sort of being replaced. I think you've probably sold the objective of go back to the championship, have a full season under your belt there, and then potentially come back and see if you've developed into a keeper that can compete against Neto for that number one spot. So I was pretty happy to see him go out on loan. I thought we got some suitable covers in Radu, and I don't know what's happening with Randolph, but whether those three could sort of hold down the fort while Travers does go out on loan. But now being recalled and not coming into the team, I feel he'll have to go back out on loan in January and restart this sort of process of getting that first team experience and that consistent games again. And then I suppose we'll have to wait and see next season where his footing is in the squad.
Yeah, Mark, because you must have a keen interest in this, being a goalkeeper and watching these styles. I mean, I look at the three. I mean, as I said, we sent Mark Travers out to go and get some not experience, but more confidence. When I look at them, I think Radu's actually probably the third best goalkeeper. And then I think Neto and Travers are very, very similar. I think they're good shot stoppers. I think their problems come about demanding the box and catching the ball. I do prefer Travers a bit, I think, but yeah, where are you seeing this at the moment? Because it is really, really strange where we've got ourselves into.
Yeah, I mean, I think Morgan and David have made some really, really good points there as well. And actually, you yourself there, Kirk, have actually, you've pretty much covered up all the points that I pretty much wanted to say. I think if I was to put myself in sort of Travis's shoes, if Iraola had sort of come to me and said, look, we're going to recall you back, you'd probably want some sort of assurances that there is a pathway to challenge for that first team spot. I think you and I have had a couple of conversations before when we discussed about the whole Radu and Neto situation when he had his supposed injury, and there was that thought of in some ways we probably even prefer for Randolph to be in goal in many respects, because Radu didn't really fill us with that much sort of confidence. But I mean, he did well in the Carabao Cup. A couple of really good saves in there as well. And obviously, it was just a shame that he came up against a prolific City and a Jeremy Doku, who was just on absolute fire that day. But in terms of with Travers, he must be coming back with the thought of that. Iraola's had a chat with him. He's seen the potential. He's seen the reviews that he's had with Stoke. And he given what some of Neto's performances have been in the past, Iraola's looking at it and thinking, right, I need somebody to be really pushing Neto, and that's probably why, in some ways, Neto could have got a little bit sloppy because there wasn't that kind of competition available for him. Now with Travers back, Neto has to be looking over his shoulder now and realizing if he doesn't start putting in the performances that, first and foremost, a top Premier League goalkeeper is required, but also a captain of a club as well, then he's going to be out on his ear, and I have no doubt that Travers will be in. If say come January, I mean, again, I completely agree with David. He more than likely they'll look at opening a door for Travers to possibly go back out on loan, because it in many ways that is his level at the moment, and he's proven it for one season or 1.5 seasons maybe in some respects. So he does need a little bit more time, a little bit more experience to go out there, get roughed around a little bit, and then hopefully come back to us next season ready to push further. David, can you upset Mark Travers though if you're messing him around?
Absolutely. And I think what Mark just said there was it explains the benefits for Neto, but it doesn't explain any benefits of having Travers there as pushing Neto, but still not getting any committed rewards for that pushing. And I think having him sit there as a number 2, pushing the number 1, maybe getting a game here and there is detrimental to his progression and his development. And Travers obviously would want to look after that himself. So I think unless he is the concrete number 1 at Bournemouth, which I don't think he is, then he's got to go out on loan and he's got to get those consistent game times as the number 1, playing week in, week out.
Because Morgan, the immediate future is not upsetting Neto, getting him back in the side. He's got the armband. The long-term future is, do we believe in Mark Travers? And if we do, we got to make sure we protect him as well. That's how I view it.
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head, Kirk. I think this is the second time he's been out on loan. He had a short time at Swindon Town, I believe. I believe it was Swindon. And he got recalled back from that early as well. So I think if you're Mark Travers, from his perspective, you've got to kind of think, am I the number one at AFC Bournemouth now? Or am I at least going to be challenging, knocking on the door for Neto? Or am I wasting my time now? I keep getting recalled back from experience that's trying to help me grow and progress to be a better goalkeeper. And I'm doing all right. And that might be his level and that best he'll ever be at that level. For them to maybe in a few years' time, hopefully, sell him for another 30, 40 million quid. Or does he need to look for somewhere else for his development and his career? Not because we don't like him at the football club and not because I don't think he's a good enough goalkeeper. I just think you don't want to be mucking the guy around. I was having a conversation off air with someone earlier, and someone's like, "Oh, can he go back to Stoke? Can he go back?" And it's like you kind of playing pass the pass a bit. You know, if he's coming back to Bournemouth, he's coming back to start a game. If he's doing well at Stoke and he's not affected, I know the situation. You just sometimes look in these decisions. Now, I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but you look for a bit of intelligence, and you kind of think, did he need to come back? Could we have been okay? Was the risk that likely? He couldn't play in the cup, so could they have given it another week to make the decision? Who knows? But for now, I think Mark Travers needs to be either starting a game or he just needs to be playing football, and that's what most footballers need to be doing, and that's what he needs to be doing.
Yeah, I suppose the risk was that we might have had a bench with no goalkeeper. I think that was probably the decision that we made the call to Stoke. Jean does say, I don't think Travers is our future at goal, and I think that's the unknown. I think that could happen. He could turn it around. I cling on with Mark Travers, and I think I've done it for quite a while now. And we did a video, didn't we, Mark Davies, before the Premier League last year, talking about Mark Travers after he got the Golden Glove. I am clinging on just about that Mark Travers can just iron out a few of his development areas, because I do think there's a goalkeeper in there.
Yeah, and that was before the 9-0 at Liverpool came along, wasn't it? So I know you couldn't have written that script, could you? Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about a lot of factors that just haven't come to fruition just yet and are definitely within the pipeline. And this is all about, the progression of the club and where Foley wants to see the club and where us fans want to see the club in the coming years. If we're setting our, dizzy heights for, European places then to emulate sort of Brighton, would you say then that Travers is our goalkeeper? Probably not in that respect, because as we progress up through there, you're looking at, the top 6 and top 7s in that respect. And in many respects, you're looking at a slightly higher caliber of, specifically just goalkeepers at this current conversation. But for the time being, whilst we are progressing up the ladder of the Premier League, hopefully, I would very much say that he has a lot of potential. He still has a lot of talent. He definitely demonstrated that within our, championship season. You don't go 46 games in that league and, not win the Golden Glove if you're, if you definitely haven't got something about you.
Yeah,
absolutely. But as we can see with a lot of the clubs that do come up and they go straight back down, the gap between the Championship and the Premier League, it's an ever-growing chasm at the moment, and money will talk. So there are a lot of elements within this. I think he has an opportunity at the moment to look to push Neto. It is a results business, and if it means that we get better performances out of Neto with Travers being there, and therefore we get results and fewer goals conceded, in many ways I'm sort of selfishly all for it, because I want us to stay in the Premier League. If say we're in a better position come January and we're starting to pull away hopefully from the bottom 3, then by all means let's get him out on loan, unless he's already got the first number 1 spot.
Interesting. David, Mark was talking about potentially us breaking into Europe at some point in our future. That would be nice. If we do that right, Is Ryan Christie still plugged in to a socket somewhere, running around in Europe against Ajax or whatever and just doing a job for the football team? He might still only have 1 goal and 1 assist, but he gives you more than that. But you're asking, is Christie playing deeper, especially with no Alex Scott, no Tyler Adams, actually going to be a benefit to him and us in the next 2 or 3 months? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I suppose obviously we've all had the the dilemma of the Ryan Christie that runs around, that leads our press, that does everything that the manager asks of him, that happens to be the first player on that team sheet, versus the Ryan Christie that just can't seem to score goals or put in assists. And I remembered from the first few matches when we signed him from Celtic in that championship season, he had a few assists, and a lot of them were those chipped balls in behind and some very decent vision that seemed to be from a little bit deeper. And we saw that again on Saturday with that chip ball to Semenyo in that run. And if that touch had been a bit different, then Christie might have had another assist. So in that sense, my thoughts were around, is his ability and the couple of shots that he had arriving a bit later, is his potential to get his numbers up going to be more beneficial from playing a little bit deeper and also freeing up that number 10 role for, we all thought Billing at the start of the season, but maybe there's a spot for Clivert, maybe there's a spot for Sinistera, and maybe we can get the best out of both worlds. Now, obviously, when Scott comes back, I don't think that position is there for him, which is the caveat to that commentary.
Mm. It is like a dog with a bone, though, Morgan. You look at Ryan Christie and think, when this squad is fit, he ain't getting in. But Ryan Christie finds a way to get in. And if you go back to last weekend, right, it shouldn't have really worked. When you look at that midfield 3 against Newcastle, so I know they were struggling with injuries in their deeper squad, but they still had a good 11 at the start of the game. That shouldn't really have worked when you look at Longstaff in there. Joe Linton normally plays in there as well. But it did. And Christie does work hard, and he runs, and he does turn over the ball, and he wins possession. He's had better tackling of late because we know he's been sloppy in tackles at the start of the season. I mean, I've had my criticism of Christie, and he could have had an assist if Sinistera could have been as good shooting as he was flicks and tricks. But yeah, I mean, he keeps doing it, Morgan. I mean, he should have been in for the man of the match, but he wasn't. He was fantastic last weekend.
Yeah, he's sensational. I think he's a can of Red Bull at the moment, in the fact that I don't know if he's got a sponsorship with them or whatever, but I think in terms of what he's offering, you can't drop Ryan Christie at the moment. You can make the case of someone like David Brooks or Justin Clivert even might get a chance in that role. But Christie, what he did against Newcastle, I know Newcastle had their injuries and suspensions, but they still had a brilliant team out. And he ran that game. He was, even at Brighton, he got the goal. I know we lost the game, but he got the goal for Dom Solanke, and that put us 1-0 up, I believe. And he's at the moment, we haven't got Tyler Adams, we haven't got Alex Scott, 50 million quid. If Ryan Christie can fill that role for now, why not? The only thing that annoys us about him is, I think it would just be so much nicer if he could get a few more goals, and then he would be a top player. But that's why, if being realistic, we wouldn't have him at the football club. I think he would be elsewhere. So that's why. And I think he managed 2 shots on target against Newcastle, which in itself is huge for Ryan Cristiano. So now he's brilliant, and hopefully he'll push on, and he can be a threat this season.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, Mark, if he did add goals and assists, he'd probably be the Kevin De Bruyne of the bottom half of the Premier League, wouldn't he? But he's got a new contract now. Christie must be very, very happy and settled. He's been a good player for us. And some of the contributors on Cherries Red Army have spoken before about how pivotal he is to this type of style, especially when you turn over and the press and what Andoni and these type of managers want. He's very crucial to it. You might not see it with the eye unless you're actually looking for it.
I think the unfortunate thing for Christie is that he came to us in a more attacking position. If we signed him in the sort of like Tyler Adams, Lewis Cook sort of role, we'd be singing his praises every single week, and we probably wouldn't even be talking about like goals or assist contributions. But the fact that he came to us as either like a number 10 or even he can even play sort of like a winger's role as well in many respects. I think that in some ways, again, when you come from the Scottish League down to England, it's a little bit of a different type of football, isn't it? So, but he's definitely Iraola'S dream in the sense of he may not have his staff with him, but in terms of a player that understands what Iraola wants, Christie is right up there. So at least that's one piece that's fitting this jigsaw quite nicely at the moment, and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. But yeah, he had his opportunities against Newcastle as well, and if it was for some slightly better finishing and maybe just not lashing at the ball in some occasions, then yeah, he'd be notching up a few more figures. But I think what's great outside of that is that there are other contributors at the moment, like the Semenyos. It's nice to see, Clivett start getting off, get his goal tally now going after a bit of a slow start in that respect. So I think this season, we're definitely going to see a goal scoring list which will have a lot more varied names in there, other than just Dom or Phil on this occasion. So just keep Christie doing what he's doing at the moment, and I'm sure in some respects, probably Tyler Adams might find it difficult to get back in the squad at the moment.
David, it was your topic. This is my final thought on Ryan Christie. Paul Faulkner in the chat said, I feel Christie just needs to increase his power in shots by 5%. When you watch him at the warm-up before a match, he hits the target quite consistently and seems to hit the ball harder. Now, I said this in Cherries in Focus, episode 18, just gone, that I feel he doesn't commit to his shooting. I feel like he just wants to hit the target because he's had many games where he doesn't hit the target. He doesn't really commit to me. There's no venom behind his shooting. Do you think he's holding something back?
Potentially. The flip side to that, he could be a lurmer, and then every time he puts his lasers through it, it goes into rosette. But he definitely needs to find that happy medium. It definitely needs some more power on it. But I was pretty happy with that second shot. I thought there was enough pace on that second shot that forced that save out of Pope. So as long as he gets around that sort of pace through the ball, I think it's a confidence thing. And I think once he hits one that goes well, it gives him a bit of that peps him up a little bit. I think he's got the ability to. He's hit them before, not for us, but he's shown that he can score and he can hit a rasping drive before. So it's just about keep believing in himself, and hopefully we'll see those results. But the question almost was around, if he moves deeper, is those goals and those assists becoming less important because you're freeing up those spaces for other attackers to come in, and he can do that job in the centre of the park where Lewis Cook does, Joe Rothwell, who also don't have those numbers, and then it sort of takes the pressure off him from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if you have got numbers continuing from Dom, if Sinistera steps up and starts finishing his chances, Tavernier is my favourite winger. Said that for a few weeks, but he needs to really kick on. He's got 1 assist this season. I think if Cliver and the likes of those wingers that I've spoken about start adding goals, you just don't think about it because we're scoring 2-3 goals a game and we're winning football matches or we're drawing football matches and we're climbing that table. So if you're watching this back on replay, do let us know your thoughts in the comments about what David has said. Our final topic then, it's been a great stream as always. What I would say, Mark, is I've sort of leaned this one onto you. So this is not fully Mark's topic, but I wanted to bring it to the table, guys. Lloyd Kelly. I mean, well, there's a big conversation coming in about 8 weeks, 6 weeks, whenever it is, when the January transfer window opens. Lloyd Kelly's contract is running low. I think when the January transfer window opens up, Mark, he can start to talk to foreign clubs because of the Bosman ruling. So he can start to think about similar to what Jordan Zamora did. I don't think he can do it with Premier League clubs. We know that Premier League clubs are interested, including Tottenham. And the big question, I suppose, is, do you sell or do you keep the Lloyd Kelly that's performing very well to help us finish the season very well?
Ultimately, mate, that's not up to us. You know, I think.
But what would you do? So you have got the power, Mark.
I'd keep him.
Yeah,
I keep him hands down, mate. He's easily a. I mean, in this current market, I mean, God knows who knows. I mean, he's easily a £40 million defender, or can be anyway. And I'm not saying that he's on the similar sort of level to what Nathan Ake has got to. I mean, he could be. Who knows? But yeah, I think if we're going to talk reality, mate, at the end of the day, yeah, Lloyd Kelly's in the driving seat in this matter. And the only thing that we can do as a club is just show, I guess, that love and affection for him, and show him that we really, really want him, and keep selling this project to him, and keep moving forward. And I think us as fans as well, we've got a big part to play in that as well. And whether that is, somebody's got to come up with some sort of chant for him, make him feel the love, make him feel that he wants to be here, he wants to stay, he wants to see this club grow, he wants to develop with the club, he wants to be climbing that league with us. But then when you do talk about the names that are potentially coming in for him, I mean, if my contract was running out and you've got a club like I believe it's like Milan or someone like that, coming in for me, I mean, yeah, of course, minimum I'm going to do is go and have a bit of a conversation with them. If it comes to a Premier League side, in some respects, fine. If it's going to be a Tottenham or one of those big six clubs, not like a Lerma where unfortunately it's a club that's in and around us. But if it's a bigger club for Kelly, and then if we're going to get a bit of cash, then let's do that. That's one of the poor things that we've done, especially within recent years, is trying to tie down some of our major assets to either longer contracts, or even when contracts are due to expire in like a year or 2 years, we're not making moves to try and maximize the amount of money that's we can get for these players. So like I say, reality is, mate, Kelly's in the driving seat for it. I want him to stay because I think there's a lot more to come from him, and I think us as fans, we can have a possibly a big say in that by giving him a lot of love and a lot of affection, and actually be supporters at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, even in the chat here, Morgan, take the cash. Lloyd Kelly going nowhere. There's a big conversation here. Ben Youssef is in the chat as well. We've got Will talking about the conversation. I can remember going back a few months ago, Morgan, when we were in the summer transfer window and final day, deadline day, and Lloyd Kelly's being looked at by Tottenham, potentially Eric Dyer coming the other way. And I can remember me saying that if it's substantial, it might be a good time. I don't really want to lose Lloyd Kelly at his age, but I didn't want to see another Jeff Lerma situation. But since then, I've understood actually that how the deal may have sort of been rolled out with Bristol City, that if it's about £20 million, by the time we might have to gift Bristol City some cash, and I don't know if this is true or not, by the way, but certain stuff I've heard, we might only get £6, £7, £8, £9 million. And if that is the case, Morgan, because I don't think we get 30 million for Lloyd Kelly with 6 months left, if we're only going to get £6 million in our physical hands, then I think, annoyingly, I'd rather keep Lloyd Kelly. If he keeps playing for the badge and performing the way he has done, left back, centre back, not fussed, I think I'd keep him.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really, you mentioned Jeff Lerma there, to see him, whatever the reason that it was upsetting to kind of see that I know that he mentioned that he wanted to go back to Spain because of his family, and then to see him go to a side like Palace. But, we got every penny that we paid for Jeff Lerma. 25 million quid is a bargain. He fighted to the end. He did everything for the badge. And, we wished him all the best. I think with Lloyd, it's an interesting one. Do we want to cash in on him now? With, as you alluded to, 6 months to go, 6 million quid or whatever. We won't get 30 million quid with 6 months in the January transfer window. No way. So compared to keeping us up, hopefully, and finishing just outside the relegation zone, compared to 120 million, absolutely, we need to keep him. I think he's crucial. I think he's growing into a very good player. He's had a lot of criticism, boos, whatever. And now he's really stepped up. Even at left back, he's having some very good performance over inexperienced Kirk Tovey, who has been muffled at times, but makes quite a few errors. I believe he got sent off tonight playing for Hungary. So Lloyd is huge, and he can cover in that left back position otherwise we've got to go out and buy a left back. It's as simple as that. I still think we need one anyway, but Lloyd Kelly's still got to stay at the football club for now.
Yeah, David, there's some really good conversations going on about this. So I think this is going to come back round, probably in January. Where are you at with Lloyd Kelly? Because I need to understand the finer details. I think if we are going to inherit 25 million quid, then that might be the point where we just accept that. And again, remember, there's a player involved here. Now, Lloyd Kelly might not want to go in January. He might want to see it out to the summer because there might be perks for doing that as well. It's a really delicate situation. It's a shame we've got here. I think, like Mark said, if there's an opportunity to somehow turn the situation around, can Andoni convince him? I think we probably tried to do that with Jeff Lerma as well. The player in Lloyd Kelly has really turned things around himself. I think he's grown. He lost the captaincy. It was great to see him get the captaincy back. I think for Burnley, I think he's led the team. He's shown leadership. He's shown his care. When Neto made that mistake against Wolves, you could see he really cared about it because there was a point there to be had. Worked so hard, David, for 30 minutes to try and get the point. And it's a really difficult situation for Lloyd. But like Mark, I want the fans to get behind him.
Yeah, and I think it's been brilliant. I do have a bit of a different take on what Bournemouth should do. I agree with we've got 2.5 months until deadline day in January, and I think we should do absolutely everything we can to sell this longer-term project to him and try and get him to sign a longer-term contract. Now, whether that's successful or not, only time will tell. I think we have the benefit, now these words might come back to haunt me, but we have the benefit of a Premier League season where 3 teams below us seem to be quite adrift from the rest of the league. And I feel that Lloyd Kelly probably won't be the difference between us staying up and us going down. I think we should be able to stay up without him, with him. And if we can't get him to sign that longer-term contract, then you've got the benefit of cashing in for whatever value you can in January. And you've also got the ability to start focusing on what that future looks like without Kelly. And whether that's Kirk Tovey and Zabani in that back four, find a replacement, a backup, and sign them in January and start looking for those players that are committed longer term to the club. And if Kelly's not willing to buy into that longer term future, then I think it makes sense to move him on in January.
Because, Mark, go on.
I was going to say, because January's going to be a really interesting month, isn't it? Because I've read somewhere, because we've got the African Cup of Nations as well coming up. Yeah. So there's a few of our players that are going to be going. So we've got the Iraola'S, we've got Semenyo, Dango as well.
I assume.
Yeah, you would think so. But so that's three players there. Then if you take possibly, looking to replace Kelly, although we do have Mepham, who again, when he has come in, he's looked as solid as he did back in the last season. So yeah, again, a big say in all of this will be Bill, Uncle Bill, and his big checkbook.
Yeah, definitely. Digress a little bit again, Morgan, like we've done on a few topics, but I know this is going to put a smile on your face. Imagine that we do cash in on Lloyd Kelly and there's a lot of money to be had and we can forge a plan to get through part of that plan potentially to the end of the season, because we feel like we'll be safe this season without, we've got to be aware of it, that we don't get dragged in again or we get away from the relegation zone. But could James Hill potentially come in and play a part? I mean, Kirk, as we know, can be a decent left back and he'll grow as a footballer as well. But James Hill seems to be doing very well at Blackburn. He's naturally a centre back, but again, you could probably play around with that back four. Yeah,
100% you could. I think James Hill's doing very well at Blackburn Rovers, and but you could all, as you guys were saying about Mepham, I think Mepham's come in and Mepham's always been down the pecking order, but every time he comes back, he looks like he's been playing there for a number of weeks and puts in a good 95-minute performance. And you got to remember the thing about Chris Mepham, he's just gone to link up with the Wales squad with Brooksy and Keeper Moore. Or I appreciate, Wales aren't the best nation without sounding disrespectful in the world, but he wouldn't be getting called up to play for his country if he wasn't very good. So he's obviously backup for, we got Senesi and Sabani. I think they're the future, but you also got Chris Mepham as well that I can come in and do a job. And as you said, James Hill. So we got plenty of options, and we wouldn't have to spend much money either in that situation. So if we want to, we can. If we don't want to, then we've got options. So it's a promising position. So let's call the shot if Kelly off, but hopefully he stays for now.
Yeah, we just got to hope that there's some positive conversations going on. Let's give Lloyd Kelly some love. He's performing very well. And let's see what happens in January. I don't think this conversation is going to go away, but it feels a really good time to talk about it. We had a great part 1. We've had a fantastic part 2 as well. Thank you very much, Morgan, David and Mark. I'm going to see you off. What shall I ask you about? We talked about Sheffield United when we saw the first part, fans, out of this stream. I suppose, Mark, thank you very much for coming on. Just about that squad that got the win against Newcastle, would you like to see an unchanged team go to Bramall Lane, or would you tweak maybe 1 or 2?
No, I keep things as it is, mate, for now. Let's keep riding that wave for as long as we possibly can. And let's just keep Christie in the middle of the park, get him running around, get him feeding Dom, feeding the wingers, okay? And let's just all settle down a little bit now, okay? Calm it down. Let's start playing Iraola ball, okay?
Yeah.
And let's start pulling away from that relegation area. So come on, up the Cherries.
Yeah, David, there feels to me that there is one question mark potentially hanging, and that's billing for Kluivert. But there is something to said about not changing a winning team.
Yeah, I actually quite liked the Kluivert Solanke. I thought he got quite close, and obviously the result was what it was. So I think you're going to go in unchanged. The only sort of talking point for me, I don't think it's quite ready yet to move Sinistera in for Tavernier, but that would probably be my only potential tweak to see if something like that works, and then have Tavernier coming off the bench. But either way, I think we're well placed to give it a red hot go at Bramall Lane when that day comes.
Yeah, because I think, Morgan, and I don't think it's Andoni's fault. I think he's had a lot to deal with. As I've said earlier in the stream, he's trying to build a philosophy, a vision, a culture. But I don't think we've seen enough consistency in the team. And I think we got a good performance. Those players that started that game against Newcastle should be feeling full of beans. And we should go to Sheffield United with every chance. Sheffield United have won at home this season, but we should go there with every chance to have a fantastic away day.
Yeah, 100%. We got we know how it is to concede 9 goals at Anfield. For them to concede 8 at home to Newcastle, which are a very good side, and then we come off the back of a win against them. Yes, I know there were a lot of players missing in Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, etc. But now we have to go there and we have to expect that we will turn them over. It's not going to be an easy game. And if you ask the lads, you've got to keep the team the same. I don't see Philip Billen this season. Yes, I know that he can come up and he can score a lot of wonder goals and he gets a lot of more goals than a lot of other of our players, but I can't see him just walking the way straight back in. Sometimes you've got to keep it basic, and you've got to, we don't know what happened on the international stage. Hopefully, Ryan Christie hasn't burnt himself out and he comes back with extra Red Bull indulged in him, and the rest of our players haven't got any knocks or any illnesses or anything that we don't know about, and hopefully we can bounce back and get 2 wins on the spin in quick succession. I think in a way it's a shame that we had to go into an international break so soon, but we weren't saying this last time around when we had a bit of a mare against Everton at Goodison. So sometimes in football it works in your favour, other times it doesn't. This time maybe it doesn't, but we backed the boys at Sheffield, so yeah.
Thank you. And if Ryan Christie does get a sponsorship deal, I'm going to credit Morgan, just so you know. Morgan, thank you very much for coming on another fan debate show. Enjoy the rest of your international break if you can.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Kirk, for having me. Thanks, lads. And hopefully England tomorrow night will be exciting or not. So, good luck to Mr. Southgate and the England team. Thank you.
Yeah. David, thank you again from Australia. We hope you've had fun. Some really good conversations. It's really good to keep the Cherries conversations, topics going even during an international break.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kurt.
Mark, thank you very much. Little tip here. He's dived on at late notice to fill the room up. You've added some good thoughts. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your international break. Thank you very much, Mark.
Pleasure, Kirk, as always. No, thanks very much for having me on. And yeah, amazing work, mate. Please keep up the good work, and everybody keep getting your likes in. Please do hit the like button. Ben also put it in the chat, so smash the like button. Thank you also to Andrew, Josh, and David Cordell from earlier on. Thank you if you've watched this back on replay. Do subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 2,000. We've got to get there before the season's out, surely. Smash the like button and do add your comments if you've watched this back on replay. So Cherries in Focus, episode 19. I think it's episode 19. We'll be back next Thursday live as we prepare for Sheffield United. Do look after yourself. Try and enjoy the international break. Thank you so much to those that joined us live and interacted. We always enjoy it. But from me and the contributors this evening, we'll see you on the next one. Up the Cherries.
Up the Cherries.
Up the Cherries.